This is Lord Megatron 7, and I'm about to give you an insight into how me, as a collector, sets up my room, collection, and organizes my pieces. Currently, what you're looking at is Siege Megatron with several additional parts. What I do is I write down where in the room a piece will be located so that I can find it, and I take a picture just like this. I also include my photo ID, which I have substituted with a Toys R Us gift card. Now, if you see there, it says Glass Showcase, which is number 9 on the list of display shelves. Now, that is right there. So, if you have a piece that you want to identify as being in the showcase, I lay down the figure as such, and I take a picture, as simple as that. And I always use this white cloth as a background so that the images are always consistent and that any damage or missing parts are easier to see. That way it's not fraudulent in any way in case of insurance purposes. Now, to get into how extreme I feel my collection is in a good way, I even have Megatron food items like Crimpets, which I didn't know what they were, and Megatron soda, I think it was grape flavor. I even have the 2-liter bottle behind here, and I have Megatron gummies, as you can see. This is my most expensive case where I put all of my, what I consider showcase pieces, including my main lucky draws, unreleased Megatrons, statuary, and things like this sword that are exclusive in some way. And this is the unreleased masterpiece Megatron coin, which you can see it has a maximal symbol on the back. And of course, G1 Megatron's in there for old time's sake. Now, as you can see, I have things like Movie the Best, wall statues. Here's where I have all of my Movieverse figures. I did not feel the need to spread these out. They just made so many different little figures. They just all go here. And this shelf is packed to the back. There's more than 700 pieces of Megatron merchandise in this room, making it one of the largest collections of one character that I know of. I'm sure there's people who have just way more than that, but for what it's worth, I will collect anything official or licensed that is made in the image of Megatron. Here you can see a knockoff, the Galaxy Defender. Why there is a picture of Cookie Monster on the box, I'm not sure, but I actually think that adds to the charm. Now, this is where I have all the McGuffins, all the Prime cores, and I have 3 Vector Prime for past, present, and future. And then I have all the different matrices and the Staff of Sparks on top of the throne of the Primes, as well as Megatron with his mini-cons. Here is where I have my prototype Megatron from Transformers Animated, and some of these will be better outlined in other pictures, but things like Devastator, Predaking, Trypticon, and Unicron normally sit in this area when they're idly, not being used, and behind them is a small collection of Jurassic Park figures that belong in the closet, but I've enjoyed looking at them, so they are there for now. Over here is what I call my thrift shop heroes. The majority of these were found at thrift shops or relative aftermarket material, and also figures that I felt like you know, like the new line of Cyberverse figures. I figured they might fit best there. Now, this is just an old Megatron tank top. We have Transformers Monopoly. I have the Transformers cassette Avengers cartoon. I've never listened to it, but because it has Megatron on the front, that was enough to get me to buy it. And then this is my shelf for characters that are not Megatron, but share his mold or his body, or even his head sculpt. And this is also the shelf for any cards and collectibles, which I don't even have enough room to display, but we can look through a few of these. Some of them are pretty cool. And then these are the Transformers Lunchables. If you give me a second. These are all the Megatron repaints, including Cryotech, Predacon, Lightning McQueen, amongst the most feared in my collection, with Bludgeon the Megatron Pig, and the other Dark Energon Megatron Pig from Angry Birds Transformers, which is actually a great game. Don't play it, you'll become addicted. It's a lot more fun than you would think it would be. I have Rampage and Shockerack Megatron repaints. Of course, the Warpath one, which I was hesitant to get because he's an Autobot, but, you know, I can't be picky. Now down here is my Megatron merch, such as Valentine's Day cards, window decals, napkins, popsicles, stickers, things like that. So coming back up, you can see up here there's a statue of Unicron. This is the Megatronica card and coin. That is an airsoft Walther P-38 and a Halloween mask. Now, coming down here is the ridiculous amount of merchandise, which somehow got knocked over. Must be the ghosts, but that's the Hallmark, like Chibi Megatron, the Revenge of the Fallen coin, Dark of the Moon Christmas ornament, Rock'em Sock'em Robot, Lollipop, G1 ornament. I don't think that's from 1986, but that's a more recent ornament. I've got a Megatron pen, Megatron chess piece, Nintendo DS case. Coming down here, I have Megatron pins, Megatron wallets, Megatron lunchboxes, Megatron skateboards. I mean, come on. How cool is that? I've even got a Megatron outlet cover. I think I have a light switch cover as well, but that might be on the light switch. I have Megatron shampoo, or bubble bath actually. But I have the matching Optimus. Of course, the Megatron thermostat. So, if you guys have any questions about this, and I also have some weird items, like, I'm getting off track, but that's just because I get excited about some of the weird stuff, like the Megatron slushy cup. Who has that in their collection? Now that's a flex. This shelf needs to be dusted. Now, in here, I have a lot of my little figures, which I believe this here is my smallest Megatron. that can be considered a figure. Then we're just going to do a quick overview. Now, this was labeled as Megatron, and it's a tech deck dude, but it doesn't have the Decepticon logo, but it looks so similar, I was like, hey, I'll buy that. And here's just a brief look at some of the smaller pieces down here. So this is one of my favorite figures. It is the third-party Obsidian Armada Megatron, and it's got metal components on it as well. So that's really cool. And then here is a sword from the Last Knight, as well as the mask from Mad Max. That's Immortan Joe's mask. And just the little cheap mask from Dark of the Moon. And if you, of course, look here, this has already been shown in a lot of images. I'm trying to give you guys a better view of things that might not have been seen. But here's one of the only shelves that's not Megatron. Right there, it's some of my childhood toys, like those old Fisher-Price Pirates and Crazy Bones and Independence Day. Some dinosaurs, things like that. But here's a whole bunch of like characters that are complete knockoffs of Transformers. And it goes all the way back. One of them is a miniature Titans or Combiner Wars. Sorry, Megatron. I'll pull that one out for you in a second. But I like this weird Santa Megatron. That was some Chinese build-up project. But here's Tiny Titans Returns Megatron. Thought it was kind of neat. Now, people ask me what I do with all the Transformers that are not Megatron. Well, they end up here. Because sometimes I need to pose Optimus Prime being stepped on by Megatron or what have you. So I keep my Decepticon army, all my Seekers, all of those characters in these bins. And I believe I have 4 or 5 Skywarps, 2 official, 3 or 4 third-party knockoffs, because they were slightly different colors. So I figured they kind of look like the Seeker army from Bumblebee. Now here are some of my set pieces, if I ever set them up to take pictures. And here are some of my set pieces if I ever set them up to take pictures. That is Captain America. I use him sometimes for scale purpose to make the characters look good standing next to a person. And this is mostly the Titans Returns, Power of the Primes, and Combiner Wars line. And now there is the Siege line, which I have added in there as well. So moving along, we have my posters and hats. Alright, we'll redo that. And moving along, we have my posters and hats. Some of those are pretty cool. Some of these posters I got from comic book shops. I apologize if you see any of the packing materials I have on the floor. And I'm sure that Starscream will use the take where I knock over my cup that I keep in here. Now here is the front of the room, which is kind of the centerpiece of what most people would be looking at. And it has everything from the Unicron trilogy to third parties And I was actually really against third parties until the last 2 to 3 years, just because I felt like they took away from, Hasbro being able to make better figures if everybody was spending their money on the third parties. But I believe third parties have somewhat balanced out in price and quality, where they can meet both those points if they want to. And here is one of my favorite new figures. Is it the best of all time? No. I just wanted a leader class Dark of the Moon Megatron, just like everybody else did. And that's why I bought that. But here is the Revenge of the Fallen Studio Series upscaled Megatron. I believe this one is called Black Mamba. And it has the light up eyes, which look pretty cool when on display. And later next year, I will be replacing all of these cases with glass cases. Now, I'm sure for some of you who have a keen eye, you've noticed the comic books behind most of my shelves. Every issue that Megatron has been on the cover of, I try to get all the variant covers and use them as wallpaper for my shelves. There is a prototype that I got. It was sent to me broken, which is unfortunate, but honestly, still happy to have it. My extra Cybertron Megatrons back there. Now here's my Transformers Prime shelf. I know some people did not like the Sharkticon Megatron, but I did. I even have things like in that little white container is the Mashables Megatron. And that little anime girl came with the car, I forget what those were called, alternators. But where everybody was a car. I did not like that product line. So there's Takara Animated, Shadow Blade, regular release, Titans Return, or I always do that, Combiner Wars. And then there's things up here like Nightmare Megatron and additional sets that I haven't opened. We'll be replacing all of these cases with glass cases. Now, I'm sure for some of you who have a keen eye, you've noticed the comic books behind most of my shelves. Every issue that Megatron has been on the cover of, I try to get all the variant covers and use them as wallpaper for my shelves. There is a prototype that I got. It was sent to me broken, which is unfortunate, but honestly, still happy to have it. My extra Cybertron Megatrons back there. Now here's my Transformers Prime shelf. I know some people did not like the Sharkticon Megatron, but I did. And I even have things like in that little white container is the Mashables Megatron. And that little anime girl came with the car, I forget what those were called, alternators. But where everybody was a car. I did not like that product line. So there's Takara Animated, Shadow Blade, regular release, Titans Return, or I always do that, Combiner Wars. And then there's things up here like Nightmare Megatron and additional sets that I haven't opened. And then here is my Beast Wars, and I forgot to remove that T-Rex, but there's Rexy. The Star Saber and Dark Star Saber. This one of my Ultra Class Megatrons was signed by David K., I believe at 2016 or 2017 Botcon in DC, or Reston. This is my original Megatron figure that I ever owned, what's left of it, and his head is on Optimal Optimus to parody the scene where he took Optimus's body in Beast Machines. Now here is another showcase shelf. There's the build of Thanos. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's not worth pulling out for me. The Botcon Rubber Duck, 2016. There is Masterpiece Megatron holding his beloved duck. And I really loved the Creo Megatron with the truck. I felt like they should have added a trailer later on, but they did not. Here is my Decepticons officer shelf. So that's all my Soundwaves, Shockwaves. Notable characters I liked, like Barricade, snuck in there. That's just because I have a Mustang. But there's Skyquake, Dreadwing, the Loyalist. It's like one of the Titan Masters got loose. But here's all of the characters who are named after Megatron, but are not him. So that's all of my Megatronus, all of my Galvatronus, or whatever it was called. So those are all my primes. Then additionally, here is the Galvatron section of my collection, which I only collect Galvatron figures every 2 years. So I will focus on collecting Galvatron figures every 2 years. But I will buy them anytime a new one is released. Here is the all-metal prototype Megatron. And right now we're going to wrap this up with Primus. And I got both of those at a thrift store. Here's a cool Armada poster. And we'll just do one last kind of pan around of the collection here. This is where I prep stuff.
Reroute all likes and subscribes to this YouTube channel.
But sir, what about the other YouTube?
Any further objections? Ram this video straight into the minds of our viewers.